Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding in Mishnah Berurah Chelik Beis, and Mir Hashem today we will be completing Daf Samach Amid Beis, as well as doing at least a nice piece of Daf Samach Aleph Amid Aleph as well. We are continuing to learn halachos Netillas Yadayim. We pick up today on the very top of Samach Amid Beis, top line in the Shulchan Aruch, in the middle of the line, right by the Ois Cotton Hay for the Mishnah Berurah. So that puts us in Siman Kuf Samach Daled in the middle of Sif Aleph. Now, before we go weiter, let's remind ourselves of what we've seen from the Shulchan Aruch so far here in Siman Kuf Samach Daled. The Mechaber introduced us to a very interesting concept. When we speak of halachos Netillas Yadayim, seudah, our expectation always is that when we're ready to go be kaveh seudah ala pas, when we're ready to go have a seudah and eat bread, we know that first we have to wash the Netillas Yadayim. And we know, even though we didn't really encounter it yet, it's going to come up really in Siman Kuf Samach Vav, there is a halacha that tekef linetila seudah. There isn't supposed to be any real hefsek between your Netillas Yadayim and your seudah. When you go to wash Netillas Yadayim for a seudah, you wash Netillas Yadayim, you make the bracha asher kedishanu b'mitzvaysav etzivanu al Netillas Yadayim, and we all know after you wash you can't speak, right? Why can't you speak after you wash? What are you making a hefsek? We understand if you make a bracha al netilas lulav, you can't speak between the bracha al netilas lulav and taking the lulav, because you're not mafsik between the bracha on the mitzvah and the accomplishment of the mitzvah. But over here, you washed Netillas Yadayim, you made a bracha on Netillas Yadayim, now you're waiting to make ha'maitzi to sit down and eat. Why can't you be mafsik? The answer is you can't be mafsik because tekef linetila seudah. There's a halacha that the seudah has to come right after the Netillas Yadayim, because the Netillas Yadayim is we're being metaher our yadayim for the seudah. That's what we're doing. We're being metaher our yadayim in preparation for the seudah, and we don't want there to be a drawn out hefsek between the Netillas Yadayim and the seudah, because if there would be a hefsek, you would be mesiach das from shmiras hayadayim. So the halacha really is tekef linetila seudah. So again, in the normal course of events, when we want to sit down and eat a seudah, if we're going to have pas, we're going to wash, we're going to make a bracha, and then right away we're going to make ha'maitzi, and we're going to eat a seudah. That's in the normal course of events. The Mechaber told us yesterday an interesting thing. He said, really, there is a concept that you could wash the Netillas Yadayim for a different purpose, not in preparation of the seudah. And if you wash your hands and you wash them in the proper way, you meet all the requirements of the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah, and then you're not mesiach das from your yadayim, you have on your mind shmiras hayadayim, you could keep your hands tahar, and then later on, if you want to eat a seudah, you can eat a seudah without washing. So in the case that we spoke of yesterday, let's take as an example, somebody wakes up in the morning and he washes the Netillas Yadayim of Shachris, otherwise, colloquially known as Negelwasser. So somebody gets up in the morning, he knows that he's going to wash the Netillas Yadayim shel Shachris, so what he says to himself is, you know what? Instead of washing Negelwasser the way I usually do, I'm going to make sure to take a keli that's kosher for the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah. I'm going to make sure that I use water that's kosher for the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah. I'm going to make sure that I wash properly. Let's say I use at least the revius. I'm going to make sure I wash my hands with all of the requirements of the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah, even though I'm not having a seudah now. And in this way, when I wash Negelwasser in the morning, I'm going to be metar my hands, and now I'm going to keep shmiras yadayim in my mind, and then I'll go to shul and I'll daven, and when I come home, I'll have a scrambled egg sandwich on bread without washing Netillas Yadayim. How could I do that? Well, because I washed my hands now, and I did it with all the requirements of Netillas Yadayim seudah, so I factually was matar my hands, and I'm going to make sure that I'm not mesiach das. I'm going to keep shmiras hayadayim on my hands. I'm going to make sure that I don't touch a makom mechusa. I'm going to make sure I don't scratch my head. I'm going to, of course, I'm going to, if I go to the Beis HaKisei in the middle, all bets are off. But I'm going to make sure that I keep my hands clean. And now, when I come to eat my scrambled egg sandwich, I'll eat my scrambled egg sandwich without Netillas Yadayim. Now, mind you, when this fellow does wash his Netillas Yadayim shel shachris, he's not going to make a bracha of Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu al Netillas Yadayim, because right now he has no chiyuv of Netillas Yadayim l'seudah. He's not about to sit down and eat pas, so he can't make a bracha Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu al Netillas Yadayim, because he has no chiyuv Netillas Yadayim now. There's no Asher Kedishanu b'mitzvaysav v'tzivanu, so he's not going to make a bracha. But he's going to wash his hands, and then later on, he'll eat his scrambled egg sandwich. Not only that, but if he continues during the day to make sure that he's not mesiach das from his yadayim, and he keeps his hands clean, then by lunch, if he wants to eat a tuna fish sandwich, he'll eat a tuna fish sandwich out until his yadayim, and so on and so forth. That's the concept that the Mechaber introduced to us. Let's just read it from Daf Samach Amud Aleph, Sif Aleph. Let's just read the Mechaber. Noitel Adam Yadav Shachris. A person could wash the Netillas Yadayim shel Shachris. Umasna aleim kalayim. And he could be masneh. And the Mishnah Berurah said, what does that mean? That he's making it tonight? Either verbally, he's going to say, when I wash my hands now, my intent is that this Netillas Yadayim should cover all of my seudas throughout the day, or at least he has it in mind mentally when he washes, that this should serve as the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah, and he makes sure that he's not mesiach das. And like the Mechaber said, noitel adam yad v'shachris u'mas aleim kol hayom, afilu shaloi b'shas chak. And the Mechaber said you could do this even, you don't need it, it doesn't have to be a shas chak. It doesn't need to be pshat that you're not going to have water later. But the great caveat the Mechaber said was, "Ubelvad shelo yisiach daita mehem shelo yitanfei." But you have to make sure that you're not mesiach das from your hands for the rest of the day. Okay, now having said that, continues the Mechaber now from where we were up to, and the Mechaber says, "Ve'im mayim mitzuyim loy," but if you do have water available, so if when you come home from shul and you want to have your scrambled egg sandwich, you have a sink in the kitchen and you have water available, tov sheyachzer v'yital yadav, it would be better that you should go wash now, right before the seudah, aval lo yivarech, but you're not going to be able to make a bracha. Why can't you make a bracha? How could you possibly make a bracha? You washed earlier in the morning, and you had in mind to accomplish taharas yadayim, and you weren't mesiach das from your hands, so you know that your hands are still tar. Now you went in and you washed again, but you can't make a bracha on that washing, because it could be that that washing didn't really accomplish anything. Your hands were already tar, so you're not going to make a bracha. So why are you washing again? So let's see the Mishnah Berurah has cut in hay. Says the Chavetz Chaim, v'mayim mitzuyim. Tam hadavar, the reason why the Mechaber is telling you to wash again is the yesh deos papaiskim, because there are opinions amongst the paiskim, shesayvrid who hold da afilu im nekel litel b'shakri shaloi b'shas atchak, even if we're mekel like the Mechaber says, and we allow you to wash with this tonight, we allow you to wash, let's say negavaser, with this tonight, that it should work for the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah later, and we're making that you could even do it shaloi b'shas atchak. Hainu shaloi oya shas atchak legamri. When we say that we allow you to employ this kula, even if it's not a shas atchak, it means it's not mamish a shas atchak. Aval mikol makom ein mayim mitzuyim samach lo shu tzarich litroich achareim ulasigam. It's not mamish a shasat kak. It's not that pashut you don't have water, but it's epis a little bit of a shasat kak. It would be a pain in the neck for you to go get water. But there has to be epis a shasat chak in order to allow you to employ this kula. But if you have a sink with running water right there in the kitchen, then we're not making it all to allow you to employ this kula of washing Netillas Yadayim earlier al tanai, that it should work later for a seudah. And the mechaber is being choshish lechatchila for this opinion, and that's why he says if you have water available, it would be better that you should wash again. Okay, now let's go into the Ramah, second line down, and when we see this Ramah, you'll see why I've said some of the things that I've said. Again, we have to fix in mind what this kula that the mechaber is giving us is. Again, normally tekef linetila seudah. In the normal course of events, you wash Netillas Yadayim l'seudah right before the seudah. You wash and then you have the seudah. That's the normal course of events. The kula that we're being given here is the possibility that you might wash earlier for a different reason. Okay? It's not that what you want to do is you want to say, it's now 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm about to go to shul. I'm going to go to shul, I'm going to go to Daf Yomi, I'm going to come home, and at 9 o'clock I'm going to want to have a scrambled egg sandwich. But at 9 o'clock I'm going to be on a very tight schedule because I have to make the bus. And I could save a minute and a half by not having to wash on my scrambled egg sandwich. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to wash the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah now at 6 o'clock, albeit without a bracha because I'm not mamish eating now. So I'll wash the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah now, and I'll eat my scrambled egg sandwich at 9 o'clock in the morning. That you can't do. You're not allowed to do that. Why? Because tekef linetila seudah. When you go to wash the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah, then you have to eat right away. You can't wash the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah and then wait 3 hours until you eat. What you can do, according to this kula, is if you have a different need to wash your hands, you have to wash negelwasser. You have to wash the Netillas Yadayim shel shachris. Okay, if you have to wash the Netillas Yadayim shel shachris, so you're going to go wash the Netillas Yadayim shel shachris with all of the strictures of the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah, so then there's a kula you could double up. You could wash negelwasser and accomplish a Netillas Yadayim l'seudah ala t'nai, and then eat 3 hours later. Another case, forget negelwasser. You already washed negelwasser, but you went to the Beis HaKisei. When you come out of the Beis HaKisei, you have to wash your hands. So now again, you have another reason why you have to wash your hands. You're washing your hands from coming out from the Beis HaKisei. So if you want to wash your hands when you come out of the Beis HaKisei with all of the requirements and all of the strictures of the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah, and you want to have in mind that it should also serve, it should double up as the Netillas Yadayim shel seudah, that you could do all tonight. And that's what the Ramah says right now. Says the Ramah, second line down, Samacham Beis. I go. Fahad mahani tonight. This concept that you could wash the Netillas Yadayim al tonight and it's effective. Dafka b'netila she'ena tzarech achila. That's only if the washing that you're going to do now is not Netillas Yadayim l'seudah. Dumya the netila l'shachris. For example, similar to if you're washing negelwasser and you want to double it up. But if what you want to do is you just want to wash the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah now and then not eat for 3 hours, loy mahani t'nai ba'is netila. That doesn't work. That you can't do. Now, in our heads, this is a little bit counterintuitive. It won't be counterintuitive once you see the Mishnah Berurah, but it sounds a little bit counterintuitive. Again, what the Mechaber is saying is, you could wash Negelwasser and have in mind that tonight that it should work for the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah 2 hours from now. You could wash coming out of the Beis HaKisei and have it tonight that it should work for the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah 2 hours from now. But you want to wash the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah now and not eat and have it work for 2 hours from now? That you cannot do. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ois Katan Vav. This only works, says the Ramah, when the washing that you're doing is she'ein tzarech achila. The lav dafka b'Netillas Yadayim shachris kishakam yakal lahasnos. It's not only on Negelwasser that you can make this tonight. To adin b'chol netila she'ein tzarech achila. Af b'emtza hayoim. It could be any other kind of washing that you need to do, other than a Netillas Yadayim l'seudah. K'goin, for example, she'not l'yadav k'sheyatzu mi beis hakisei. Somebody's washing his hands when he comes out of the Beis HaKisei. Or he's washing his hands because he's makbid on davar shetibulei b'mashke. He's sticking apple slices into honey, and he's makbid to do the Netillas Yadayim first. So in either one of those cases, he's doing a Netillas Yadayim, but not for seudah, and he's going to have in mind the Tanai that it should double up and it should work for a seudah that he's going to have later. That works. Why does that work? Because since he's washing for a different reason, and he has a need to wash when he's not having a seudah, then we're not concerned about the halacha of tekif l'netila seudah. And we'll explain that a little bit more. Let's go weiter. Let's see Mishnah Berurah's cut Zion. But you want to wash Netillas Yadayim l'seudah now at 6 o'clock in the morning and then not have a seudah until 9 o'clock? That you can't do. Loy mahani tonight. That you can't do. What the Ramah wants to say is, she'em noitel yadav lechol. You want to wash the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah at 6 o'clock in the morning. And you want to say, I'm making it tonight that I'm watching the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah at 6 o'clock in the morning, but I'm not having a seudah. I'm going to go daven, I'm going to do the daf, then I'm going to come home and I'm going to have a seudah. Loy mahani, that you can't do, because that's in contraindication to a beferish halacha. The habeina tekef l'netila seudah, because the halacha is tekef l'netila seudah. Al kolpanim l'chatchila, at least l'chatchila, k'maskaras hamechaber b'siman kuf samach vav sef aleph. So what the Ramah is saying with the explanation of the Mishnah Berurah is like this: the reason we let you get away with it if you want to do it, let's say, with Negelwasser, is because over there's nothing wrong with the washing that you're doing. You need to wash now. You need to wash Negelwasser. So you need to wash now. You're going to make sure that you wash Negelwasser with all of the requirements of the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah, and you can make it tonight that it should cover me for the seudah that I'm going to have 2 hours now. What you're doing is not 100% in contraindication to the halacha of tekef l'netila seudah. It's not that you're washing the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah and then delaying the seudah. You're washing Negelwasser. Be'ikr, you're washing Negelwasser. You're allowing the Negelwasser to double up as the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah by making it Tanai, and then by making sure that you're not Mesiach Das on your hands. So memela, your hands are going to remain tahar until you're ready to eat the seudah. And then when you're ready to eat the seudah, there's really no need for the Netillas Yadayim because your hands are tahar. So that's what you're doing. But to go ahead beferish and wash the Netillas Yadayim l'seudah at 6 o'clock in the morning and have it tonight that I'm going to wash now and only eat then, that's going against the halacha of tekef Netillas seudah, and says the Ramah that does not work. That you can't do. Now, continues the Mishnah Berurah, and the Mishnah Berurah says, but there is sort of a middle ground that does work. What's that middle ground? Miu. Im nata l'tzarech achila. Let's change the case a little bit. Let's say what you want to do is like this. It's 9 o'clock in the morning, and you're ready to eat your scrambled egg sandwich. And you know that for lunch you're going to have a tuna fish sandwich at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So now what you want to do is like this. You want to wash the Netillas Yadayim seudah for breakfast. And you want to make it tonight that your Netillas Yadayim seudah for breakfast should also cover you for lunch. That you could do, says the Mishnah Berurah. Miu, im nata l'tzarech achila. If you wash the Netillas Yadayim for a seudah that you're going to eat now, v'hisne sheyala l'gam la'achila shniya sheyochel ba'isa yom, and you want to have in mind that it should cover you for another seudah that you're going to eat later, v'shamar yadav, and you make sure to keep your hands tar, gam kein mahani. That does work. Why? Because that's not any worse than the washing negelwasser and having in mind that it should work for a seudah later. So the crux of the issue is that the halacha of tekef l'netilas seudah, that halacha, what that halacha says is, you're not allowed to wash Netillas Yadayim for a seudah and then not have a seudah and only have a seudah 2 hours later. That you're not allowed to do. But you want to wash for negelwasser and have the negelwasser double up as the Netillas Yadayim seudah and eat 2 hours later? That you could do. You want to wash the Netillas Yadayim seudah for breakfast and actually eat breakfast now. So you're not going against the halacha of tekef l'netilas seudah. You're washing for breakfast and you're eating breakfast. And now that you're doing that, you want to make it tonight that washing should cover you for lunch too? That you're allowed to do. Okay, so that was Sif Aleph. Very, very fascinating to me, the concepts. Okay. Boy, I see already. We're not going to make it quite as far as I was hoping. Don't know what's going on. I don't know why I can't. I'm having a lot of trouble recovering. My voice recovers for a couple of days, and then I stress it, and it comes back. I'm not sure why. I have to see. Okay, Sif Beis. 2 lines from the bottom of Samach Amud Beis. You know, there are some people who could give shiurim, they could give shmuzim, they could give speeches, and they speak very calmly and very matter-of-factly and very softly. What can I tell you? Not my style. And I guess that's why my shiur appeals to certain people. It doesn't appeal to others. I guess there's different styles. There are people who need that very calm, very intellectual, maybe very professorial, I don't know, approach. And then there are people who appreciate the more dynamic approach. I'm not trying to perform. It's just natural to me. That's I get into it and I get excited and I get worked up, and that's just my style. I guess if you're listening, I guess you appreciate it. But at the same time, when I'm like this, I try to take it down a notch just so that I should be able to get through it. So, is what it is. Sif Beis, Samach Amud Beis, 2 lines from the bottom. This is a halacha that I think this halacha gets very short shrift by a lot of people. A lot of people don't pay attention to this halacha. We have to realize that when we wash Netillas Yadayim seudah, I think most people kind of look at it that I want to sit down and I want to eat a seudah, even on Shabbos, let's say. So I know that we're going to have challah. I know that we're going to make hamoitzi on lechem Mishnah. And we take as an assumption that I guess not the very beginning, we start the Shabbos seudah with Kiddush, unless you're of more or less Yekisha persuasion, so you wash first. But by most people, you make Kiddush, then you get up, you go to wash. Okay, you wash, you make Netillas Yadayim, you know that you can't talk. Then you come to the table, Hamoitzi, you eat your challah, and now you go on to the seudah. I think in most people's minds, the whole topic of Netillas Yadayim is over, so to speak, once they made Hamoitzi on their challah. They know that they have to wash. They know that they have to wash. They know that they have to make a bracha on Netillas Yadayim. They know that they're not allowed to speak once they made that bracha until they make the Hamoitzi. Once they make the Hamoitzi, the whole sugya of Netillas Yadayim is gone from their minds. But it shouldn't be that way. Why? Because what's Netillas Yadayim all about? Netillas Yadayim is about the Chachamim were geyser Stam Yadayim Ashniyos L'Tumah. Since Stam Yadayim Ashniyos L'Tumah, you need to wash before you eat a seudah with bread. And this was all Misham Srach Truma. This was all because of the importance of indoctrinating Klal Yisrael that you need to eat with clean hands. Why? Because Kaihanim must eat with clean hands. Because Kaihanim handle Truma. And if Kaihanim won't eat with clean hands, they'll cause Hefsid Truma. They'll cause Truma to become ruined. So, you wash the Netillas Yadayim, but is the sugya of the Netillas Yadayim over once you make Hamoitzi? No. What do I mean? You washed your hands, and you cleaned them, and you made them tar, but now they have to remain that way while you eat the seudah. So really, on some level at least, you have to have on your mind Shmiras HaYadayim. You can't just be Mesiach Das completely from your hands and not pay attention to what you do with your hands. Because if you do certain things with your hands in middle of the seudah, you're going to need a new Netillas Yadayim. Really? Well, yeah, that's what we're going to see here in Sif Beis. What happens if in the middle of the seudah you scratch your head? I'm not talking about you touch your head. I'm talking about you scratch your head in the middle of the seudah. What happens if in the middle of the seudah you have a mosquito bite on your upper arm in a makom mechusa, in a part of the body that's usually covered, and you go and you scratch it. You put your hand inside your shirt and you go and you scratch your skin. Or down here, in your shirt, you go down past the collarbone, which is a makom mechusa. Or you lift up the leg of your pants. You got one of those really annoying mosquito bites on the back of your calf. So you, instead of scratching it through your pants, you lift up your pant leg and you scratch your leg. And you're touching a makom mechusa. Now suddenly you need a new Netillas Yadayim. So the sugya of Netillas Yadayim really does not end after Hamoitzi. You still need Shmiras HaYadayim. And that's really the topic over here of Sif Beis. Says the Mechaber Sif Beis, 2 lines from the bottom of Samach Amid Beis. Mi she'omed b'seudah. Somebody who's in the middle of a seudah. So that means he washed Netillas Yadayim, he made a bracha, he made Hamoitzi, now he's in the middle of the seudah. V'nizkar, and it comes to his mind in the middle of the seudah, shenaga b'shoik, that he touched his bare leg. The shoik is really the calf. So he went under his pant leg, and he touched his bare calf. V'yorech, or even higher up, maybe he touched his thigh. U'mekoymais hamachusim ba'adam, or other areas of the body that are typically covered. Oy shechikech beroishoy, or he scratched his head. V'chol kiyotze bazeh, or anything similar to this, Says the Ramah, top line, Samach Aleph Amud Aleph, Mekaimais, the Mishnah Berurah takes out the Vav over here, Mekaimais hamitunafim, areas of the body that are considered unclean, sheyesh behem milmulei zeya, because they're covered areas of the body that typically have perspiration on them. Milmulei zeya means that there's like a little bit of a mamoshus, like tangible perspiration. So these are unclean areas of the body. So if the Machaber is saying, if you washed, but now you're in the middle of the seudah, and it comes to your mind that you touched such an area of the body, says the Machaber, tzarich lachzor v'lital yadav, you got to go and wash the Netillas Yadayim over again, and the Machaber paskins v'yavarech al Netillas Yadayim. You need a new Netillas Yadayim with a bracha, according to the Machaber. Now we'll see whether or not we paskin that way, but the Machaber paskins that you need a new Netillas Yadayim with a bracha. So one takeaway from here we see right away, and that's beyond dispute, and that is that the sugya of Netillas Yadayim does not end when you make hamaitzi. You need to remember when you're in the middle of a seudah that required washing, you need to be cognizant of what you do with your hands. Because depending on what you do with your hands, you could cause halachic difficulties. Says the Mishnah Berurah, back at Samach Amud Beis, Mishnah Berurah is cut ches. V'niskar shenoga. The Chavetz Chaim takes it a step further. The Chavetz Chaim says, "V'hu hadin im hisiach daitoi mishmirasoi." The Machaber's case is, you realize that you touched, that you did in fact touch an unclean part of the body. The Machaber says, if in the middle of the seudah you realize that you touched an unclean part of your body, or you realize that you scratched your head, the Machaber paskind nu Netillas Yadayim with a bracha. The Chavetz Chaim is extending it. He's being even more machmir. He says, not that you know that you touched something. How about if you just realize that you were completely mesiach das from your hands? Now we have to see what that means. But let's say you realize that you were completely mesiach das from your hands. Tzarich lital. You got to wash over again. Like we're going to see Kuf Ayin Sif Aleph. You'll have to see what I wrote over there. Now, what the Mishnah Berurah writes in Siman Kuf Ayin is, and it's very instructive, he writes, what does it mean that you were mesiach das from your hands? So the Mishnah Berurah says, what that means is, let's say you walked away from the seudah. Sometimes you have these long Shabbos seudas. Some houses have very long Shabbos seudas all the time. But let's say even you buy a Shabbos Sheva brachas, and it turns into a speechathon. And it's one of these really long seudas, and you got up and you left the table. So you got up, you went out with a friend, you walked out, now always you have to be careful, by the way, about hefsek shinui makom. It's not so pashut. You wash, you're in the middle of a meal, you can't just go outside for a walk, for a spazier. But you walked away from the table, and you're schmoozing with somebody for an hour, away from the table. That's called being mesiach das from your yadayim. You know why? Because you were mesiach das from the whole seudah. While you're in the middle of a seudah, we sort of take for granted that since you're in the middle of a seudah, you're cognizant of the fact that you need to protect your hands from touching places that they shouldn't touch. But if you walked away from the seudah and you're just schmoozing with somebody, then we're already afraid that you'll scratch your head. So, says the Mishnah Berurah, the Mechaber says, if in the middle of the seudah you scratched your head, if in the middle of the seudah you scratched your body in a makom mechusa, says the Mechaber, you need to wash again with a new bracha. Says the Mishnah Berurah, also, if you were mesiach das, if you were mesiach das from shmiras yadayim, so yadayim askani aisem. We know that the hands touch things that we don't even realize. You have to wash again. Albeit, the Mishnah Berurah says in other places without a bracha. because over there it's a suffix. You don't know for sure that you touched something that you shouldn't have touched. It's only a suffix. But the suffix is enough to make you go wash the Netillas Yadayim over again, at least without a bracha. Now says the Mishnah another interesting thing. Let's say you washed, you took a bite of your salami sandwich, and now while you have the food in your mouth, you go ahead and you scratch your head. Okay, so you need to wash a new Netillas Yadayim. But could I swallow the food that I have in my mouth? Now, right away you would say that there's a very strong reason to say that you could. Why? Because what's the whole concern of Netillas Yadayim? That you're going to touch the food with unclean hands. You're not going to touch the food that's in your mouth. It's already in your mouth. So let me swallow what's in my mouth. Says the Mishnah, no. If you scratch your head or you touch a covered part of the body while you have food in your mouth, also lavlaya. You're not allowed to swallow it until you wash your new Netillas Yadayim. Now you'll say, Rabbi Weiss, why? Like you just said, you're not going to touch the food. Yeah, well, we had a halacha previously that if somebody is feeding you, so you're not going to touch the food, you still need to wash the Netillas Yadayim. Why? Because loy plug. The Chachamim made a flat rule. You're eating, you need Netillas Yadayim. So if you touch an uncovered part of your body and you made your hands, you made your hands, so to speak, tameh again, and they need a new Netillas Yadayim, you can't eat. So you can't swallow what's in your mouth until you wash your new Netillas Yadayim. Ice cut and test, if you touch covered parts of the body, what the Mechaber wants to say is, in other covered parts of the body, those are areas that have perspiration on them. This stands in contrast to exposed parts of the body, like your face, the parts of the forearm that are often uncovered, and kpeda. There's no kpeda, there's no problem with touching those areas. Or you scratched your head. But if you didn't scratch your head, you just touched your hair, you don't need a new Netillas Yadayim. Even if you wiped your hand on your hair, you don't need a new Netillas Yadayim. Like we saw previously, Ice cut yin aleph ubimekayim samet tunafim tzarich loymar ba mekayim polay vav. Take out the vav over here. It should the Ramah should just read mekayim samet tunafim. Umashakasav sheyesh behem utam l'chol anal. He's just telling us how to read this Ramah. The Mechaber said if you touch a makom mechusa or you scratch your head, and then the Ramah added in bimekayim samet tunafim. You touched unclean parts of the body. Sheyesh behem umulei zayah. These are places that have perspiration. So then, ice cut and yud beis tzarich lachzer v'litel. The Mechaber said you need to wash a new Netillas Yadayim. Says the Mishnah Berurah, v'cholshkeinim naga b'mkayim tinoifes mamish. Certainly, if you touch a real, seriously unclean part of the body, or you go to the Beis HaKisei for Gedolim, or even if you don't go to the Beis HaKisei for Gedolim, you go for Ketanim, you urinate, but you touched yourself where you're allowed to touch yourself in order to shake off any droplets of urine, so then you're really touching a makam hamatunif. So certainly you need a new Netillas Yadayim. Ice cut Yud Gimel, and the Mechaber's psak is v'yavarech al Netillas Yadayim. The Mechaber's psak is that you need a new Netillas Yadayim with a bracha. Now, a very important Mishnah Berurah. V'rashal, the Marshal in the Yam Shel Shloimeh Cholik. He disagrees with the Mechaber, with Sfir Alei, and the Marshal holds the ein tzarich levarech machmas negiyosai be'emtza seudah bezeya. The Marshal is chaylik on the Mechaber's requirement to make a bracha. He's not chaylik on the mechaber's requirement that you need to wash again, but he's chaylik on the requirement of the mechaber that you wash again with a bracha. And the reason is because the Marshal says we don't find that Chazal were misaken Netillas Yadayim in middle of a seudah. We find that Chazal were misaken Netillas Yadayim prior to a seudah. So then we could make Netillas Yadayim and make a bracha shaking the shudder b'misayis v'tzivanu on Netillas Yadayim. But you want to tell me that since you touched a makom metunif, you need to wash again with a bracha? How are you going to say shaking the shudder b'misayis v'tzivanu? We don't find a takanas Chazal to wash Netillas Yadayim in the middle of a seudah. Now you're right. The rationale of Netillas Yadayim applies. You made your hands dirty. You need to wash again. So okay, wash again, but not with a bracha. That's the psak of the Marshal. It's also the psak of the Baal Kitzur Shulchan Aruch and others, and that's the psak that I received from my Rabbeim, from Berurah Feinstein, Zalzang Gesund Stark, that we don't wash again with a bracha. Va'afilu ba'asa tzrachav be'emsa sudasai. Says the Marshal, even if you went to the Beis HaKisei for Gedolim in the middle of the seudah, gam kein sfira le'dein tzarech levarech. The Marshal holds that over there you also don't make another bracha on the Netillas Yadayim, and that's the way we're noyik. That even if you go to the Beis HaKisei for Gedolim in the middle of the seudah, yes, you must wash your hands, but you don't make a bracha on Netillas Yadayim. Elim kein halach v'hiflig be'emsa sudasai. The Marshal says the only time you're going to make a bracha on a new Netillas Yadayim be'emsa seudah is if, and one of these words, im kein halach, if you went away from the seudah, v'hiflig, and you spent a long time. And in Sif Kuf Ayin, the Mishnah Berurah identifies that as an hour or two. If you walked away from the seudah and you schmoozed with somebody for an hour and a half, then even the Marshal is maskim that you need to wash with a new bracha. V'hinei, says the Mishnah Berurah, yesh harbe deyas ba'achronim. There's a lot of differences of opinion amongst the achronim. Im yesh linig lamaisa k'moisai, if you should be noig like the Marshal or like the Mechaber. V'ayin be'Beurah halacha, the Chavetz Chaim says, take a look at the Beurah halacha. Shehichranu, the Chavetz Chaim is machriya in the Beurah halacha, the ba'asa tzrachav, that if you went to the Beis HaKisei for Gedolim, oy shenaga b'makom metunif mamish, or you touched a real soiled part of your body, oy shehalach v'hiflig, or you walked away from the seudah and you spent a long time away from the seudah, then sark Netillas Yadayim b'vracha. Then the Chavetz Chaim holds that you need a new Netillas Yadayim with a bracha. But if you scratched a mosquito bite on a part of your body that's normally covered, or you urinated, even if you shook off droplets of urine, you need a proper Netillas Yadayim, meaning with a keli, with an intact keli, with a revius, etc., etc. But you don't make a bracha. So that's the hachra, that's the psak of the Mishnah Berurah. So according to the Mishnah Berurah, you're in the middle of a seudah, and you stick your hand inside your shirt, and you scratch your body, you need to go wash again, but without a bracha. You go to the Beis HaKisei for Gedolim, and you come back to the seudah, you need a new Netillas Yadayim with a bracha. That's the psak of the Mishnah Berurah. That's not the psak that I think most of us follow, certainly not the psak that I follow. I would wash again without a bracha. Okay, now, let's just tie up briefly. So, be'ikr, what we saw over here in Sif Beis is the need to pay attention to Shmiras HaYodayim for the entirety of the seudah. Not saying that you have to sit there and keep thinking about your hands. No, if you remember what we learned by Hilchas Tefillin, when you're wearing tefillin, you're not allowed to be Mesiach Das from tefillin. That doesn't mean that the whole time that you're davening wearing tefillin, you have to be constantly reminding yourself about tefillin. No. When you're davening Shemona Esrei, you have to have in mind Shemona Esrei. When you say Kriya Shema, you have to have in mind Kriya Shema, not your tefillin. I mean, you say, then you do have in mind your tefillin. But by Kriya Shema, you're having in mind Avos Hashem. You're having in mind Shmiras HaMitzvahs. You're having in mind Yetzias Mitzrayim. You're not tefillin. What does it mean to be Mesiach Das from tefillin? To be Mesiach Das from tefillin, we said in Hilchos Tefillin, means that when you remove your mind from tefillah and you put your mind on something where tefillin is contraindicated, now already you're mamish Mesiach Das. Now your mind is off tefillin completely. Now you have a problem. Same thing with the Shmiras Yadayim. There's an assumption you understand that you washed Netillas Yadayim in preparation of the seudah because you need to keep your hands clean and because you need to keep your hands tahar, so to speak. So as long as you're involved in the seudah, we assume that you're going to be cognizant of what your hands are doing. And you're not going to touch something that you shouldn't touch. If you remove yourself from the seudah, you are Mesiach Das from your Yadayim. So you need to keep in mind Shmiras Yadayim. And you need to keep in mind, if you did touch something that you shouldn't touch, go wash your hands again, albeit without a bracha. Okay, we're going to stop over here. We'll continue next time, Yirtzeh Hashem, with Siman Kuf Samachay. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. This is limud HaTorah should be Megan. God's Klal Yisrael, the Rosh should send Yeshua's Parnasa, Shaduchim to all those in need. Achenu Kol Beis Yisrael, Adosunu Matzara B'Shivya, Ha'imdim Bein Bayam, Bein Bayabasha, Hamakayim Yerachem Eleim, V'yitziim Mitzara L'Rvacha, Me'afela L'Oira, U'mishiba L'Geula, Hashta B'Agala V'Zman Kariv, V'naimar Amen. Be well.